right, guys, good morning. It's Christmas week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Big Mike is actually in the Alps skiing today. So John has graced us with his presence today. John McCardle, good friend of mine. Welcome.
Thank you.
And today I'm super stoked. We've got a great guest on the show, just a great testimony and great story and great resiliency story, essentially. So Kelly Thrush, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Excited.
Yeah, man. So first of all, how we got connected, I went to a Toastmasters event.
Yeah.
Met Sylvia.
Yeah, a week or two ago, something like that.
Yeah, Midtown Toastmasters. And just kind of, as I'm out and about, I ask people, hey, do you know anybody with a great recovery story? And she said, I might. And then I think within 5 minutes, she texted me your info. So here we are.
Yeah, here we are. Sylvia's great, man. And Toastmasters is awesome, too. That's how, Sylvia and I are actually neighbors.
Okay.
And that's how we originally met, I don't even know, 3 or 4 years ago, something like that. And then I found out she's part of Toastmasters, and I'm interested in that and, getting better at public speaking and sharing my story. And so I ended up attending Toastmasters for, about a year or so.
Okay.
And it's awesome.
What was the biggest thing you got out of it?
Oh, with Toastmasters, a lot of the technical side of public speaking, how to start your story, how not to say, pause.
The filler words?
Yeah, the filler words.
Yeah.
Those types of things, and really your stage presence, I think that's also what I was focused on. So I think that's what I got the most out of. But it's amazing, not that we're talking about Toastmasters, but it's an amazing organization because there's so many different people there for so many different reasons.
Right.
There's folks there that are learning English as a second language, and they're using it for their just communication skills. Mm-hmm. There's other ones that are working towards whatever degree in their jobs and their career. Mm-hmm. So they're working on how to be more commanding for a presentation or whatever it might be, but the mix of people was fantastic, and I met some great people at Toastmasters. It was awesome.
A lot of driven people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the reason that you're here today, our show is Sobriety, Spirituality, and Sales. You've got just an incredible story of overcoming your alcoholism and to the point where you almost passed away because your liver was shot, correct?
Yep, that about sums it up. It's been pretty amazing. It was a journey, that's for sure.
So why don't we just start at the beginning, if you don't mind? You said you grew up here in Tucson.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Grew up here in Tucson, right in Midtown, Granton, Swan area.
Okay. What high school did you attend?
Catalina.
Okay.
The original.
The original.
Not that Foothills one.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I went to Catalina.
Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. So let me ask you this: what myself, I didn't get into drugs and alcohol until I was like a junior in high school. What was your journey into, or just if you just have a quick story about what life was like then and what led you into that kind of stuff? And
sure.
Maybe it was older in life. I don't know.
Well, it was a little older than that. I was college
when
I finally picked up the bottle and started figuring out that booze and I were very good friends. High school, I didn't drink at all. I mean, my first time drinking ever was actually my spring break of my senior year in high school. My focus then was I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. I was student body president. I had goals. So I would go to the high school parties out in the desert with the kegs and whatnot. But I didn't drink. And usually I left early because I wanted to go work out or baseball practice or whatever it was. And so we'd leave early, or I would leave early at that point, and then got to college. And on your own, with your college roommates, we lived off campus, and we were all part of the baseball team. And beer started to become a bit more accessible, and then you mix that in with a few different shots, and then parties were super fun. And by 2 years into college, alcohol actually, and partying, I should say, became more important than baseball. And I can actually attribute my competitive baseball career to one piss poor decision on a road trip where I decided to get hammered in the back of the bus with the rest of the fellas. Ended up going to the testing center for my final in Spanish class the next day that I didn't study for because I was on the back of the bus hanging out with everybody. Made myself a little cheat sheet, right, because I'm going to pass this test. And I had the same professor for 4 semesters. Like, she loved me. I had an A in the class. Like, I didn't need to use this cheat sheet. Nonetheless, got caught in the testing center, and the proctor comes over and grabs my little cheat sheet and hands it back to the professor and turns it into her. And at the time, my professor did me a favor. She goes, look, we're not going to put this on your transcripts. I'm going to just give you a D in the class so you don't get credit for it, but you're still eligible for the postseason. None of this is going to follow you around, but you're just going to have to take this class over again. And I thought, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Finished up that postseason. We lost like 2 games. We were out quick too.
What school is it?
This is Scottsdale Community College.
Okay.
Up in Phoenix.
The Artichokes?
The Fighting Artichokes. Yes. Artie the Artichoke. And so that next fall, I was walking on to the U of A. At least that was the plan, to come back down to Tucson. I was going to play over at the U of A.
What position did you play?
I pitched in college.
Lefty or righty?
Left-handed.
Nice.
Yeah, left-handed
Same.
pitcher. Yeah. So a little southpaw.
Yes, sir.
Man, we'll have to swap some stories. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So anyway, fall rolls around and they're having these tryouts that I'm walking on the team. And as it turns out, I had 46 of the 48 credits transferred that I needed in order to be eligible to try out. And lo and behold, I was 1 class short on that tryout. And so I wasn't even able to put on a pair of spikes and get on the field.
Wow.
And at that point, like I said, other avenues in my life, working, partying, so forth, were more important. So I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I didn't want to play anyway, kind of thing. But one poor decision in the back of the bus, drinking and watching Bull Durham, I think we were, on the way home. And yeah, that was the end of the competitive baseball career anyway.
Yeah.
So after college, started working in restaurants. I'd worked in restaurants all the way through high school and college.
So did you actually finish college then?
No, I ended up finishing. So I got all the way through my junior year, and then restaurants became more important. And because I figured out I was really good at restaurants.
Okay.
I'm pretty extroverted. I like fast-paced. I like working hard.
Right.
I definitely like the party atmosphere, which restaurants checks all of those boxes.
Absolutely.
Especially at 21, 22, whatever I was, 20, I guess. It's fast-paced. You have cash on hand.
Mm-hmm.
You're out late at night with all your friends. Mm-hmm. Most of the folks you work with are young extroverts with extra cash as well.
So a recipe for disaster for the alcoholic or addict.
Yes, for sure. But I was good at them. I'm good with people and, work hard. And so worked my way up the food chain at restaurants pretty quick. I mean, I was a server for 9 months before I took my first management position, and then worked my way up, and then worked in bars and restaurants for the rest of my career that way. And alcohol got to be a problem over those years.
Well, John, you sold liquor we discussed this on the show you were on last time, so you're familiar with the industry.
Oh yeah, it's just I have to give the corporations a little uplift, is that they didn't condone that, but they sure accepted it as a part of business.
Yeah.
I was paid quite well to wine and dine some of my customers.
In some nice places too, right?
Oh yeah, and I never got in trouble for that. And there were times that I created a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. They just marked it off. Don't do that anymore. And it was so the justification and seems to get crossed over.
Well, the almighty dollar is the important thing. Okay, there's the Michigan coach that just got in all this trouble. What ended up coming out is they knew about all this stuff prior to anything really happening with this young lady, and really they were more worried about the recruiting class they had coming in, so they were keeping it under wraps. Yeah. So this guy had an emotional breakdown, and obviously, and not that what he was doing was right, but it just goes to show in big business what's more important, right? The individual typically gets bypassed because making money is typically more important. In the restaurant business, you're making money hand over fist. The owners are, and as a server, you're probably making a couple $100 every shift, and things are good. And
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's a fun environment when you're working in it too. It was the one that I worked at for the majority of my career was an upscale sports bar. So I mean, it's beer and sports and good food. 15 hours a day. I mean, it was fantastic, especially when you're in your early 20s.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think I worked in higher, establishments up in the foothills all the way down to like, a rib place that used to be on Oracle and Auto Mall there. And so, yeah, you just see it all, but it was very fast paced. the way my brain operates, again, I liked that as well because I could multitask. It was like controlled chaos, you know?
I'd say that's how I describe it all the time. It is controlled chaos, especially when I talk to folks that aren't in the business, you know, and it's fast paced. It's putting out fires. It's how many things can I accomplish at one time, which is exactly how my brain works. You know, I can get bored fairly easy. So I need those chaotic moments to keep me on my toes, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. So I never drank on the job. I'd smoke. I'd go out in the parking lot and smoke, hit the one hitter or whatnot. You know, tried Coke once on shift, and that was a terrible idea. Absolutely. I thought everybody was watching me and looking at me, and but I wasn't much after work. Yes. Yeah. You know, I can remember the late nights on 4th Avenue, hitting up Raw Sushi Bar. I mean, you name it, we were doing it and hanging out. So for you served, you said, for about a year, 9 months to a year, and then got into management.
Correct. I was managing early. I was just before my 21st birthday, I got offered my first management, you know, quote unquote role. It was a sous chef, so it was back of the house. I had no back of the house training whatsoever, but I knew I wanted to work my way up the ranks. And so that was my first entry-level management job. Now, looking back, was I actually managing people? No. I was, you know, labor saver device more than anything else. But it was my first introduction to it. And by the time I was 26, I was running my own restaurants up in Colorado. I was now in charge of a, you know, $1.5 million plus a year store that I was in charge of at age 25, 26 when I got up there. And I was in the same boat. I didn't drink those first early years. I didn't drink on shift. I can't say ever. I think I tried it once when I was serving, and I would spill things and drop stuff, and I'm like, that's an awful idea. I'm not doing that again. Yeah. But as the years progressed and my addiction grew, I was drinking at work.
Was there ever a time that you thought to yourself, maybe I should get into another industry, or did that thought not come in at this point?
No, it did for a couple of reasons. One, restaurants, as fun as they are, it's a tough job. I mean, it's lots and lots of hours, 80, 90 hours a week is normal. And it's evenings, weekends, holidays. I was newly married, young kids, so you miss a lot of that stuff. So yes, I always wanted, well, I can't say I always wanted, but there were plenty of times where I wanted out of the industry. The problem was, didn't finish college. We already covered that. And I'm good at this. So now felt very stuck in this is what's going to actually pay the bills, the skill set that I have. So I didn't have a whole lot of opportunity to be able to wipe the slate clean, go back to school, figure something out, because I had, adult responsibilities along with it.
Talk about that feeling of being stuck. I mean, at this point with your drinking, those thoughts that came into play, was it just kind of a fleeting thought of, I'll just keep doing this? Or was there some serious thought put into it? But then the drinking was, you're like, well, maybe I won't be able to switch careers and do what I'm doing and having this kind of fun.
I think, early for sure. I think there was some of that where definitely feel stuck in the industry where I'm at because it's my only, valuable skill set that I had at the time. At least was my mindset behind it. But there definitely was that whole, well, where else am I going to be able to do all this stuff and have fun and talk to, young people and move fast? I don't want to go sit in a bank, for 8 hours a day behind a teller. That was not my personality.
Sure.
And so, there was a lot of that, especially in the younger years.
Were you ever given any opportunities or had any opportunities brought to you by potential, working in the restaurant industry, you're dealing with business professionals. And I'm sure you had this happen where somebody comes up and gives you a card and says, hey, Kelly, I really like what you do here. If you're ever interested in changing directions, here's my information. I'm sure you made a bunch of connections, right? Yeah,
there was a few of those. A lot of them were still in the same industry, liquor sales, those types of ones that saw some of that. But again, at that point, I was like, no, I don't want to, go from managing this restaurant where I'm now in charge of 75, 80 people to now be a liquor rep where I'm the low man on the totem pole. My ego didn't let me even, I'd brush that aside real quick. Once I got into my 30s and realized that I needed to do something different. In my 20s, I didn't have a problem with drinking.
Sure.
Like that was, I don't have a problem. You're the one that doesn't drink. You have the issue, not me.
Yeah.
Right? In my 30s, started to recognize that this wasn't healthy. Probably need to try something different. So I actually did. I don't remember how old I was, 35, call it something like that, where I got out of restaurants and went into insurance sales. Again, good with people. But now I have zero structure in my day. I have zero accountability with anybody else. I worked for a company, but you worked for yourself. It was 100% commission. that's a point in my drinking career that when it escalated quickly, because now I can drink all day long and I'm just out on the road doing my own thing. I'm not interacting with people unless I'm sitting in front of you talking about whatever insurance policy it was. My alcoholism went to the next level during those, I think, 2 years I worked for that company, to the point where now it's starting to affect my marriage, my first marriage, starting to affect my relationship with the kids, starting to affect bills that I'm not paying, all of the different, avalanche of things that start to snowball when your addiction gets worse. Those 2 years were really paramount to that.
So if you could speak to the relationship with your wife, you mentioned you were married once already. So two marriages?
Yeah,
okay.
Second marriage currently.
And how many children?
Yeah. I have 2, and then my current wife has 1, so we have 3 together.
So the original maybe relationship, how present were you with the kids? I mean, working 80 hours a week is a grind in itself, adding drinking and then coming home and trying to spend quality time with your family. I mean, how did that play out for you personally? Was that an issue, or were you able to kind of disassociate from work and everything and be present for them? Or
so I was present, I think, to a point. At the time, in my mindset at the time, there was no problem. I knew I had to work these 80 hours a week because this is my job and this is what pays for everything else. But I missed birthday parties and Little League games and all sorts of different things. And the time we spent together, we had fun times. I don't want to, paint a completely rainy day over the whole thing. But there were plenty of times. One of my most, I don't know if I've shared this story publicly, but one of my most regrettable moments was coming home to read bedtime story to my son, and I couldn't get through it just because I was hammered and still, because I was just got home from work. It's probably, I don't even know, 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It's bedtime. And we got to 2 or 3 pages, and I had to make up some cock and bull story about why I couldn't finish because I couldn't physically read the pages. There were plenty of those types of moments. Sure. That I didn't notice at the time. Now, with sober eyes looking back, there were plenty of those.
John was my sponsor in a 12-step program.
Okay.
So that's what we're familiar with. And, what's interesting to me about all of our guests, everybody has a different recovery story. And yours is unique, too, because you did Smart Recovery. Mm-hmm. I believe I tried Smart Recovery, but at the time, I wasn't even interested in really getting sober, right? I'm sure you can understand and agree with this, is I had all these consequences happen, and none of that was enough to make me change my mind. It wasn't until, I felt this pull inside me where, So I tried the Smart Recovery. If you want to explain, what that program was, how that worked for you, what drew you to it, or what made that work for you. And obviously, having a liver transplant, that's got to play a huge part, right? It's life or death for you at that point.
Correct. Played a huge role. And I actually have the same story for AA, just flip-flopped, right? So I tried AA a couple of times. I had a DUI in 2012, so I was mandated to go to AA, and it didn't take because I wasn't ready to be sober. We've all seen it when we're in the rooms, right? I was the guy that walked in and goes, man, look at these losers over here. These guys have real problems. Meanwhile, I'm, serving out my, DUI that I have. My marriage is starting to fall apart, and I'm not recognizing that, brother, you need to be here. Everybody else saw that, but I couldn't. And so I had that a couple of different experiences with AA. In 2015, the end of 2015, that year, my wife knew I was still drinking, but I was hiding it at least somewhat well from the rest of the world. She knew for sure. And on Halloween of that night, my daughter found a couple of little shooters in the car, and it all came to a head that day. And she says, basically an ultimatum, you either stop and figure something out or we're done. And so I went to AA the very next day, and it was the same boat. You'd think there had been a light bulb that went off for me, oh boy, this is serious. No, it was, I need to go to AA. I need to quit drinking for a bit. This will all pass if I just, do what she says and it'll be fine. And I went to, 2 or 3 or 4 meetings that month, not even that week, that month.
Right. Kind of dip your toe in.
And it was the same. I had the same attitude behind it. These guys have real problems over here, and I'm fine, but these guys really need to be here. So then, flash forward now to 2017. The marriage has dissolved. I actually didn't drink for almost the entire year for 2016. There was about a 13-month stretch where I didn't drink. I am very careful with my words. I don't say sober.
Sure.
I said I didn't drink.
Right.
Because I was waiting for the time where I could again. And 2016 was a good year. And then in December of 2016, I had that moment that we've all heard about or even thought maybe in your, drinking careers where, look, I'm cured. I went a whole year without drinking. I can drink like a normal person. It's totally fine. And sure enough, I had 2 drinks that day when I made that decision, or I had been thinking about it for a while, obviously, but finally made the decision that day. I was fine that day. I had 2 drinks. It was perfect. Other than I was lying about it and didn't tell anybody. But physically, it was only 2. And within 3 weeks, I was worse than it was the year before, where I was all day long and heavy drinking. It wasn't just beer. It was, 100 proof Yukon Jack shooters, and I couldn't tell you how many of them per day. Until after a couple months, my marriage dissolved. She asked me to leave. And then 2017 was a rough drinking year. I was in the bottom of the bottle daily.
So the book, and this is just my experience, but the book talks about the jumping off place. You can't live with it. You can't live without it. It sounds kind of like in different terms, that's what you're describing.
Very much so.
Because it wasn't really working anymore. It wasn't helping you overcome your issues, but it's really all you had to kind of blot out the divorce, the, feeling sorry for yourself, whatever you were actually feeling at the time, which I can't imagine. It sounds terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't great. That's for sure. I think in the early part of, bachelorhood, when she kicked me out, it was, oh, great, now I can do whatever I want. Look at all this freedom I have as I'm sleeping on my grandmother's couch because I have no place to go. Thank goodness we still have my grandmother's house. Otherwise, I'd have been homeless. I had nowhere to go.
Wow.
Because the family relationships and dynamics, I had burned all of those bridges. Not to the point where they wouldn't talk to me, but we definitely didn't have good relationships. They weren't inviting me to come stay at their house.
Sure.
At that point. I remember my sister who lives in Colorado, she was actually nice enough to give my grandmother and I don't even know, $100 worth of Instacart from Walmart so we could put groceries in the fridge because otherwise I couldn't pay for it.
Wow.
She couldn't pay for it. So she was able to do that for us. And then after about, I don't know, probably 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something along those lines of that, single living, passed out on the couch every day. Then it got to be where, this is all I have. It's me and the bottle, and we're just going to hang out here, and this is what we're going to do. I didn't have any future plans. I didn't know how long this was going to last. I didn't think that far ahead. It was simply, I'm just going to numb this out until I pass out, and then we'll do it again tomorrow.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned the phrase "make a decision." So you made a decision to go back to the bottle, to drinking. Just as much as you made a decision to stop.
Very much so.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and we, I'm sorry, but we've all talked about it where, when you relapse, and I can't say for everybody, but I think a good chunk of folks, when you relapse, it didn't just happen that day, right? We have been planning this and thinking about this, and it's been in the back of your mind growing for days, weeks, months, who knows? For me, it was at least a couple of months of, look at this, I'm doing pretty good. I haven't drank in a year. That's something to celebrate for. And how do we celebrate? Well, we go out drinking, And so finally that particular day, I decided today's the day. We're going to try it. I'm going to prove to the world that I am not an alcoholic and I can drink like a normal person. And I proved to the world that, no, you're an alcoholic and you can't drink like a normal person, is what I proved.
Well, I believe in the concept of a mustard seed. And when I plant that mustard seed that I'm okay, in my brain, it takes me a while to nurture that, to justify and rationalize that even with everything that points against the truth, I can justify and rationalize, well, no, that doesn't account. I know that not drinking is better, but, and then at some point, there's that F word that comes in, and it's a F it, and you drink.
Just like you won't run a stop sign,
right?
A stoplight.
If I really know I'm supposed to stop at this stoplight, and there's a lot of things that could happen if I run this thing, but on the way there, you say F it, and you run through it. And what we didn't want to do, for me, I say we, I mean me, is hold ourselves responsible, accountable for those actions after I took the action. You know, I didn't want to, If somebody hit me, they should have been more aware. They should have known I was going to run the stoplight. Those are the type of thinking processes that I used to justify and I never lasted a year, by the way. It could be 3 days. All right, I made 3 days, I'm okay. But it would be justifying and rationalization on it to that it was okay.
Yeah, and I think you hit
knowing that it didn't.
Oh, sure, and you hit the nail on the head. That word nurture, right? You gotta. It is that mustard seed, where you have that idea that's planted back there somewhere in your subconscious, or your barely conscious mind, and you nurture it and you water it and you let it grow, and then finally one day, it's a full-fledged idea that you're going to act on, or at least for me, that I was going to act on. The other thing that you said that I related to when you said we, which I mean me, right? I say it all the time. You know, oh, we did this. Yeah, it's just me and the voices in my head. Like that's the collective we. So.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a short break here for a commercial. And I forgot to mention this in the beginning. The show's brought to you by Michael Bader, State Farm Agency, First and River. You guys need a quote, end of the year. Please check him out. Great guy. He's supporting the show. We're going to take a quick break.
Hey everybody, it's Chris.
Hey, it's David Samarano.
Hey guys, it's Clint Peak over here.
Hi, I'm Blair Lametti Mathias.
And I'm Summer Smeaton.
Hey, I'm Ron Arenas.
And I'm Will Pena.
Hey guys, I'm Mike Curry.
And I'm Mike Bader.
Hi there, I'm Bruce Ash.
Hi, Ed Wilkinson here.
Hi, this is Bob Elliott.
We are Live the Dream Media. Watch and listen to all of our shows Monday through Friday, only on the Live the Dream Media Network.
What matters most to you? Protecting your family, your home, your car, or planning for the future? State Farm makes it simple to protect what matters most. Agent Michael J. Bader is here in your community to guide you through every step, making sure you get the protection you need without the hassle. Whether it's auto, home, life, or business insurance, Michael J. Bader can help you find the right plan today. Call 520-878-0098 or email michael@baderagency.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Myself included.
All right, guys, we are back. So this is incredible. I don't know where did we leave off?
We were talking about mustard seeds, I think.
Yes. The power of, and we mentioned this before we came in the room, but holding things in our heads, not letting folks know what's going on. I mean, there's been times where I'm like, you know what, a drink or a drug sounds good. I was a methamphetamine addict. There's times where I'm like, man, I really could smoke some meth right now. And if I don't get that out there, if I don't tell my spouse or somebody, my sponsor, I'm screwed, because eventually I will act on that thought if I keep it to myself, right? And so, you played sports growing up. You were a baseball player, which I didn't know. That's pretty cool. But there's a consistent theme with a lot of people that are in recovery, and that theme is, hey, they were focused on athletics as a young person. They did great. They were, but there's a certain point where the athletics, the baseball was kind of taken from you, maybe self-imposed a bit, but maybe there was an identity shift that happened. Maybe you didn't even realize it. You said, okay, I'll just continue going down this road. But then you quickly got into another identity, which was the fun party guy in the bars, the manager, the server, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah.
Super fast-paced environment.
Yeah, it absolutely was an identity shift. And I didn't recognize it at age 20. I didn't have that much self-awareness, but looking back now as an adult, for sure. I was the baseball guy. That's how my friends knew me. That's how my family knew me. And I gave it away. I don't think it was taken away. I gave it away, right? And so, then I found restaurants, and I was a restaurant guy, and I was good at that. And I was the party guy. The shirts that they all have, like, oh, this is a horrible idea, hold my beer, or whatever it is. Yeah, that shirt was for me. Yeah. Like, I was that guy, like, no, I'll do it. Here, hold my beer, and
it's
off
funny,
we go.
It's funny you say that, because John tells me a story all the time where he jumped off some bridge that everyone else was scared to do.
Off the Roosevelt Dam.
Oh, boy. That's a big one.
High on LSD and drunk.
Okay.
And I jumped once to prove to my friends that I wasn't afraid, and I was scared to death. And I jumped the second time to try to prove to me I
There you
wasn't
go.
afraid, and I was just as afraid both times I jumped. I
Sure.
jumped.
Yeah.
But to me, later, because you have to look at cause conditions. What are the underlying causes and condition? I was in sports in high school. I mean, I grew up in Texas. Football was it. And then in my junior year, I got busted up and I couldn't play anymore. Well, I didn't have that dopamine rush, that adrenaline that I had on the field anymore. And boy, I drank, but I would quit for the season, and I played basketball and football mostly at that point. I played Little League baseball. And I had to replace that loss. And alcohol supplied that for me. Boy, when I felt that buzz, my dopamine was released. Boy, I was at home. Oh yeah, this is good. And way down deep, because I was raised in an alcoholic home, I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew it wasn't good, so I was in that denial stage started. And then when I started running with a lot of people, the denial kicked in even more because we mask all our problems that we're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
That we're having fun. And so that just started growing. In spite of even sometimes when I tried to deny it. And years later, I had a problem where I couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how mine flourished. It was partying with the fellas, and then I started playing men's league baseball, and some of those guys are still some of my closest friends, although most of us are now in recovery. And it was, you had that locker room is probably what I missed the most out of competitive sports, was that camaraderie and that locker room atmosphere. I absolutely missed the dopamine hits and the adrenaline that came along with it. And alcohol does. It fills that void, because now, especially if we're at a large gathering, at least in my mind, I was the life of the party. All eyes were on me. I was the guy that would jump off the Roosevelt Dam, although I'm not real sure I'd have done that. But now that I say that, I probably would have with you. I'd have probably gone with you.
Well, there's two of us.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I'd have been the third right behind you.
We were playing horseshoes by lantern light, saying, what do we need to do? And the reason we did it is because whoever our party at Roosevelt Lake was called Roosevelt Root Out. And whoever did the most rude or spectacular thing got free T-shirts.
Oh, okay.
So we did it for a free
And
T-shirt.
the T-shirt said what you said.
Oh, hold my beer. Yeah. That's funny.
So the phrase that comes to mind recently as I work through, my business and what I want to help people with is the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yes.
So what you're saying is this locker room thing that you missed out on, you found connection in a different place that sufficed, but it came with some things that over time stopped serving you.
Very much so. And it got to my drinking got to the point where it has ruined my marriage. It has, at that point, greatly diminished the relationship with my kids. I'm now getting fired from jobs that I used to be good at. I was the guy at work professionally that people could count on, and I would get things done and so forth. And now I'm not that guy, right?
So I think we've done a great job of explaining what it was like. Okay, and why don't we just touch on the surgery, how that came to fruition, how And I asked you, hey, do you have a relationship with a higher power? You have that. And maybe if you want to explain that, great. If not, no big deal. But it's just amazing to me that I believe you said that there was not even an opportunity for that, and it was brought to the table at the last second. Am I right in saying that? Or
in which part?
For the transplant.
That
wasn't even on the table, and then they said, okay, we've got something for you? Or?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, there was a bit more to it. But yeah, I mean, it was all fast-paced. So at that point, this was the end of 2017, going into 2018. My sober day is January 8th, so we're almost up there. A couple weeks away, and on January 10th of that year, I was at work, actually where I work currently. I still work there, and my boss came up to me and forced me to go to the hospital because I was jaundiced, I was yellow, I was in complete denial.
Now, that picture you shared with me in the hospital gown laying on the
Yeah.
bed, that's that color that you had at that time.
I was actually worse. That
Wow.
picture that you saw was shortly after the transplant, so my color had started coming back.
You still looked a little flushed, though. in
I
that
was a
picture.
little
Yeah,
flushed,
yeah.
for sure. To the point where the day before I got kicked out to go to the hospital and sent home, one of my employees came up to me and she looks at me and goes, "Oh my gosh, Kelly, are you dying?" Tongue in cheek, but that's how bad I looked. And of course, in my denial, I looked at her and said, no, I'm not dying. Get back to work. We have stuff to do. And so, she sent me to the hospital. Thank goodness.
You're like the guy on the Titanic that's still cleaning the tables while the sink
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, everything's fine. I just don't feel good, which is really what I thought was going to be the issue. And then even that day, I still didn't go to the hospital. That's how stubborn I was, because I wouldn't want to see a doctor. I knew exactly what they were going to tell me was, you drink too much, you need to stop. I didn't know that they were going to say you were at end-stage liver failure, because I didn't understand what that was at the time. So I drove myself to the little minute clinic by our house, and that doctor took a look at me and said, "I can't help you here. You need to go to an actual hospital. You're in end-stage liver failure." The short version of this story is I spent 4.5 months in the hospital.
Wow.
Let me rephrase, hospitals, plural, because we'd start at one. I'd spend a couple of weeks there. The docs would work on me and basically say, "There's really not much more we can do for you here. Go try this hospital." So we go over there for a couple of weeks. They do other different procedures. Over those weeks, I'm getting worse and worse and worse. I'm now, a month into this journey. Ascites is a fluid inside your abdomen, right? We've probably seen people with it. I'm this big around and ballooned out. And so they do a procedure called paracentesis, which is a pretty invasive procedure to drain that fluid. And they would take liters upon liters out of my abdomen. And they can only do it so often because of the amount of stress it puts on your body and your blood pressure and your organs and so forth. And I'd spent a couple months at that hospital, and they said, "There's really nothing we can do for you here. Here's the name of the liver specialist of all liver specialists here in Tucson. You need to go see him. And if he can't help you, I don't know what to tell you." So we had, at that point, too, key point in this story that I've missed is during 2017, I met my now wife. Her name is Jamie, and we had been dating about 6 months to the point where I got sent home to go to the hospital. So we had just started dating. She had no idea what kind of alcoholic I was, because at that point I was drinking from the moment I woke up until I passed out at night. But I was, during most days, I was that steady drinker, couple of drinks every hour, keep my blood alcohol at that 0.18, 0.19 level. There were days, don't get me wrong, where we'd turn up the volume. But most days it was that steady state, got a nice little, and I wasn't even buzzed. I was just drunk, the whole day. So anyway, Jamie and I went to this specialist, the liver specialist, and we had 2 appointments. The first appointment was all the blood work and so forth. Second appointment took less than 5 minutes because he said, "There's nothing we can do for you. You have about a month, maybe 6 weeks. It's time to get your affairs in order and send us on our way." And Jamie looks at him, basically fires him on the spot and says, "That's not good enough." And she wheeled me, because I could not walk at the time, out of the office. That next day, I think it was the next day. I don't think it was that same day. We had a family meeting at my grandmother's house, where now my dad's there, my mom's there. My 2 brothers got called, and my sister, who was an RN up in Colorado, got on the phone, and the decision was made to send me to Banner as kind of our last hope. And so we ended up making it to Banner, which was an adventure, because I was having a very, very bad day. Like, I couldn't stay up, I couldn't stay awake, I couldn't hold a conversation, I couldn't get out of bed. And so we're at the ER that day, and over the course of the first couple of weeks at Banner, the hepatology team, the liver team, said, "Sorry, you're beyond repair." The transplant team said I was beyond repair, when this is the only realistic solution, was to have a full liver transplant. And part of those hurdles, there's 2 hurdles that I had to overcome to get that transplant. One was normal transplant hurdles. In order to be a transplant recipient, you have to be the right amount of sick, right? If you're not sick enough, well, then you can wait. Somebody else that's on that transplant list needs this organ more urgently than you do, so they're a little higher priority. The other one we talked about a bit before I came on the show was I wasn't sober. The only reason I wasn't drinking is because I was in the hospital. And so typically speaking, there's protocols for folks in my situation where you have to be sober for an entire year. You have to work programs, whether it's Smart Recovery, which we haven't talked about yet, or AA or something to that nature. You have to go to therapy. Anyway, there's a bunch of protocols in place. I didn't have that kind of time. And so there were 2 doctors specifically that were hospitalists, that are hospitalists. They're internal medicine doctors that were part of my team. They put their reputations on the line and convinced the transplant team that I was worth the risk, that they saw something in me that I should, or that they should go ahead with the transplant. And thankfully they did, because it took that was March now of 2018. And within a couple of weeks, as soon as I got on the transplant list, I immediately went to the top of the list. And within a couple of weeks, they were able to recover an organ for me. And that day of my transplant, my body crashed. I mean, I was now, what in medically terms, I was actively dying in the ICU. I was bleeding out as my liver is getting vetted and prepped and all the things transplant doctors do and surgeons do. I was in the ICU. Getting blood transfused as quickly as I was bleeding it out. So it was a close call.
Can you just touch on was there a conversation that was had that made them feel like you were worth the cause?
I don't know.
And
I don't think it was one point. I've asked them that question since then, and they can't articulate it either. If you want to talk spirituality, something...
That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
You know?
Something I can't explain.
Yeah.
Convinced them that they knew, the way I like to think about it anyway, they knew that if I made it through this, I'm going to be giving back to the community as much as I possibly can. That's how I like to think about it, because it keeps me going each day as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's with Smart Recovery, which I'm now a facilitator for and have been for a couple, 3-4 years now. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, and then of course we have our foundation too.
So part of this agreement was you would start that as soon as you were feeling up to it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous is powerlessness, unmanageability. What is a first step, or what is the initial thing you do in Smart Recovery?
Sure. So we don't have 12 steps, and we don't have them lined out that way, but we have stages.
Sure.
And it's the same idea. It's denial is that first stage, right, where there isn't a problem. You don't recognize a problem. There ain't nothing wrong, which I lived in that step for a decade plus. And then the next one is the step, or the stage, I should say, is where there's a bit of self-contemplation, a bit of self-reflection, like, maybe I do have an issue. And then the next one is actual action contemplation, where you are now, I think I need to actually do something about this. And that's correct, and take that action. So very similar in structure, the 2 programs, different vehicles. I mean, the same destination in mind. You want to get to that sobriety.
And so the reality of it is when you make a decision, the decision was kind of made for you with this life-altering event that happened and this new lease on life that you were given. But it really doesn't matter what the vehicle is, as long as there's a vehicle and you can partake and you can make a decision to get involved and unwaveringly and do what you need to do.
Yeah, and that happened almost immediately. I mean, the story I like to tell is that day waking up from transplant, when I finally really came to and I was conscious and aware of where I was actually laying. I mean, I still had all the tubes hooked up. I still had the ventilator down my throat. At that point, my family was there around the bed in the ICU, the family that could be there. My sister had flown in from Colorado, so she's got one hand, and my then girlfriend, now wife, has my other hand. My mom's there, my dad's there. My son was actually there, which was amazing because, like I mentioned, our relationship was not good. And so...
How old was your son at this point?
Oh, let's see. 17, 16, something like that. Not old.
Right.
He's 24 now, so yeah, so 16 coming up.
But he knew the gravity of everything that was going on, obviously.
Oh, sure. I'm sure he did. And there's 2 of them. They were both, 14, 15, 16 when all of this was going down. And so while they may not have, and you'd have to ask him, they may not have known all of the ins and outs and details, but they understood what was happening for sure. They were plenty old enough to understand. But when I woke up, I had this amazing moment of this overwhelming gratitude and it was just, I was the essence of that word, that I had actually made it through to the other side. And it was the first time I think I admitted to myself what I actually just went through. I mean, I think during those 2 months in the hospital, I was still in varying levels of denial of how serious this actually was. And part of that is my personality. I'm a pretty optimistic guy anyway. Like, it's going to work out. It's going to be fine. But not allowing myself to really realize how close I was to not being here until I was on the other side of that surgery. The other side of that coin was this just soul-crippling guilt that I felt that I had put everybody, including myself, through this. Not only my family and my loved ones, but the doctors that had to do what they did, the 2 doctors that convinced the transplant team. I mean, just this weight of the world of, and I couldn't have one emotion without the other. The moment I started feeling grateful, I would immediately have those negative thoughts of the guilt that kind of, this is my own fault. I put myself here in spite of all of the thoughts of, I knew I shouldn't be doing this. I'm the one that did this to myself.
So talk about transforming that, energetically transforming those thoughts, those feelings into what you do now, because you are in charge of a sales organization, and then you also have your foundation.
Sure.
Which, if you'd like to share on air, we can
can
mention
talk
that to
about
folks if people want to reach out to you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the foundation. That's those emotions that I had that day were the seedling of the foundation that we have right now. Because the way I look on my transplant now, it's 2 parts. One, all of the moments that I have from the moment I woke up until whenever my last moment is, whatever that day may be, they don't belong to me. Right? This is all extra time that I have been given by so many people, and I owe it to them to earn this gift every day in every small action that I can take, whether it's helping the little old lady to get the soup can off the counter, or something big like we do with the foundation and keeping lights on for a family, or letting some guy, some jerk on the freeway that needs to get over, just let him in. He didn't have to cut me off. I'll let you in. Yeah. Whatever small action I can take, that's the energy I need to put out into the world in order to prove to myself that, yeah, I deserve this. I need to earn it every day. Mm-hmm. And the way I can do that, what I believe is the only reason I think that I made it through that ordeal is so I can help other people. Mm-hmm. It's the only thing that makes any sense to me. Otherwise, why am I here? Mm-hmm. And so how many people can I positively affect every single day? And so that was kind of the seedling of the foundation. And so my wife and I knew we needed to give back, but we didn't know what that was going to look like. So even in the ICU, I started thinking about, like, how am I going to do this? And so in the ICU, we started taking pictures of all the different tubes and machinery and the food and all the different things that I kind of went through in my experience. And the idea was we were going to put together a binder for future transplant patients to kind of describe from a patient's point of view what you're about to go through. Because there's lots of things that doctors can't explain because they're not the one laying in the bed. So that was kind of the idea. Now, I didn't realize at the time that sort of stuff already exists out there in the world. But that was my idea at the time. And so over the course of the next 2 years or so, started sharing my story a bit more. I didn't talk about it for the first probably year and a half, because that shame that you have when you're newly sober, boy, that weighed heavily on me, especially that first year. I mean, that summer afterwards, I was in a very, very dark place. I mean, I was not clinically diagnosed as depressed, but I'm sure it was there. My therapist actually called it complicated grief, is what he called it, as a quote-unquote diagnosis. It was grief for the loss of the life I used to live and the person I used to be, for the family that I lost, for all of the different things, that grief, which was affecting my day-to-day life, right? And so over the course of those years, we started sharing our story, or I started sharing my story, because I realized that if I talked about my sobriety and what I went through, 2 magical things happened. One, I got better because I'm now sharing my story with you sitting next to me, and then simultaneously somehow you're affected by my story and you're getting better at your sobriety. And so I would share these moments with folks and realize that, man, I'm being selfish if I don't share this, including all of the ugly parts. In fact, probably most importantly, those ugly parts of what we went through. And so then my wife, who also didn't really share her portions of it, she started sharing her side of the transplant journey, and stuff I had no idea. The financial struggles we went through, I had no clue what sort of stress and pressure she was under until she started sharing that. And that's how the Gratitude and Grace Foundation, our nonprofit that we started, that's how that was born. Because now what we do is help transplant patients and folks in substance abuse recovery. We help them financially, we help them communally. All the different things that we can do for them are things that we could have used in those first couple of years. And so that's how the whole foundation was born out of that. It was amazing.
Do you want to throw your website out there real quick?
Yeah, it's super simple, gratitudeandgracefoundation.org. We have a gala coming up. I know we talked about that. It's our end of the year gala, January 31st, where it's our big fundraiser of the year where we talk about the year before. This year is pretty special. We've done 3 of them. Well, excuse me, this is the 3rd that we're about to do. And most of the time, I'm the one that does the talking because Jamie and I have very different roles in the foundation. Like I'm the front of the camera and I share my story and I chat with folks, and she's behind the scenes doing the actual work. She has decided to be the keynote speaker this year, and she's going to share her story.
Stepping out of her comfort zone.
Oh, out of her comfort zone, and her story is so much more powerful than mine. Listening to what she went through and how folks can relate to that. I mean, it really is truly amazing listening to her talk. And so she's going to be the keynote this year, so we're super excited about that.
Awesome.
I understand that. I'm a cancer survivor, but my wife, who's my angel, she had such a harder time going through. All I had to do was be sick.
Exactly.
and hope that I got better.
Exactly.
She had to put in all the work and the worry and everything else. The caregivers are really, truly angels.
Agreed. Jamie is the reason I'm alive. Like, there is no other. She is the reason I'm sitting here chatting with you today.
What's powerful is how you mentioned she told the doctor, we're not going to accept that answer. And
correct.
I mean, that's, and knowing you for 4 to 6 months, I mean, obviously she was, meant to be in your life and to be able to support you and all that.
And the progression you were talking about through all the doctors and everything else, everything was put right at my front door. Well, it'll take 7 weeks for this. It happened in 2. This doctor won't be available until. It happened the next week. Just a progression of things. And I'm going, it's the power of the universe.
Well, and it's like a
God,
test.
our God, or it didn't matter. But my spirituality walk, the spiritual walk I was into, was so enhanced by me being sick that I was amazed.
Yeah.
I was amazed that I went, whoa. And that position of gratitude afterwards was overwhelming.
It is. Well, that's why it's 2 of my favorite words are gratitude and grace, which are why the foundation is named that and how we came up with that name. Yeah. But Jamie was amazing in saving my life. I mean, how many experts can tell you no? They went to school for this. This is their specialty. Right. And she had doctor after doctor after doctor that said, no, there's nothing we can do for you. You're beyond repair. At some point, you're going to listen.
Well, I think the important thing to take away from this is that, yes, they are the expert, but you have to go to bat for yourself. You have to take your health into your own hands. And, everything that you went through is powering what you're doing today and the way you show up for your employees at work and your foundation with your family, the presence, the letting somebody cut you off. I think it's an incredible story. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We'll have to have you back because we barely even touched on a lot of stuff.
Oh, please. I'd love to. Yes.
And so, John, thank you so much for being here to support us and what we do. And again, the show's brought to you by Michael Bader, State Farm Agency, First and River. Visit the foundation if you guys need some help, if you're going through a rough time in your recovery, and if you know a transplant, somebody in the system, correct?
Yep.
And then, guys, if you need some help, if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or sales professional, and you're looking for some help, visit my website, MikeCurryCoaching.com. schedule a free session and we can talk from there. Thank you so much for being here. John, once again, thank you.
Yeah.
And Merry Christmas to both of you.
Thank you, sir.
You're listening to the Live the Dream Media Network, Arizona's premier live podcast studio, and on